Battalion 1.
We just had a plane crash into Alpha 4 of the World Trade Center. Welcome to Bird 2-3. When you see any movement in there, I want you to hit it. Out.
Roger. We're taking fire from roughly building 112,
421, eastbound, red Pontiac G6, near passenger, George Robert.
Car standby. Car standby. 50 officer.
Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building, it was just a huge explosion.
right outside the building, 33. We're outside the building. 744
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Watching the War, everyone. Today in the studio we have a Gibson County native who spent 13 years in the Marine Corps, 20 years in the corporate world, and is now a leadership extraordinaire. My friend Sean Georges. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Appreciate it. Great to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. So we kind of went over this a little bit earlier, but let's. We want to hear your story. We want to hear you start wherever you want to pick up, and then let's get into talking about some leadership today.
Absolutely, be honored. Originally, Indiana boy, and probably like many folks who I have found that are attracted to the military. There's usually something that they feel that they're trying to find about themselves. My parents were divorced at an early age, and I think growing up, being raised by an amazing mother, but there was this desire really to figure out who I was as a man, and also somehow in my small brain was this concept of leadership that was elusive, but was something that I was just drawn to, and figuring out what it meant, what it was, how you become one. And I think that's what really drove me into the military, and in my case, the Naval Academy was appealing from many perspectives. Probably one was because we had no money for college. That's right. It's free tuition if you get accepted, right? Yeah, free. They always say it's a $500,000 education crammed down your throat a nickel at a time is what they. So which was fortunate enough to get into Annapolis, and while there, the leadership education began in earnest, and I managed to be able to observe some Marines in the among the Navy officers that were on the what we called in the yard at Annapolis, and was just really, there was something about the culture that and their perspective in the Marine Corps that really drew me. And of course the uniforms look pretty good too. So
you're the second Naval Academy grad we've had on.
Oh, is that right?
And the other Alex Trujillo, he went Navy route, but he mentions the same thing about he's like, the Marines, they just had this thing, and I appreciated it, but it was too much for me.
Too much running.
Too much running. So, and you're sitting here describing a very similar type of like camaraderie, like early on. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, that mission focus and a sense of that team was everything. And what I quickly learned especially at the basic school in Quantico. So after you graduate, you're commissioned, and you spend 6 months running around the woods in Quantico, Virginia. Again, even after 4 years at Annapolis, where you really learn how to follow, you learn how to be a good teammate. And you learn some things about leadership, but not really. You don't really know who you are as a leader.
Yeah.
But in the Marine Corps, you're right back to the beginning. You're starting over, and the education, pretty intense education there at the basic school in Quantico is really about, you may have rank. So we were second lieutenants, whatever, butter bars.
Also known as butter bars. There are these, it's the lowest rank in the officer world. So like military split enlisted officer, right? I'm sure that's law enforcement's very similar to that. Well, sort of like that, right? You have like patrolmen and, captains or whatever, right? We have officer, we have enlisted, right? And kind of like what Alex, we were talking about, it's kind of like blue collar, white collar.
A little bit.
Right? But, like a private in the enlisted world is, I don't want to say they're the same, but at the bottom of the totem pole in the officer world would be a second lieutenant, just a little silver or a little gold bar.
Yeah.
Not a lot of respect going out the gate with some guys that are like, E8s and E9s, so
it's really just the opportunity to earn
that's right.
respect.
That's right. And they do, some of them.
And you have to, that's, and one of the big things I began to grapple with, even at the basic school, was what it meant to lead. And there was this idea and this phrase that was rolling around really from day one: leaders eat last. Mm-hmm. It's become a popular phrase now. Someone wrote a book about it, but it was a Marine Corps. I think the genesis was in the Marines. Leaders eat last, and I thought, okay, well, now I know where to stand in the chow hall line. Get behind my Marines, and I'm the last one through. But it actually means everything. Mm-hmm. It's about servant leadership. We don't lead. There you go, Simon Sinek. Yeah, leaders eat last. And even in that book, he talks about and gives credit to the Marines for the phrase, but. What you find when you get to the core of leadership is this idea of being a servant, that you're serving not in a weak way, not in a subservient way, but your whole, everything that moves you, everything that motivates your behavior, your words, what you are observing, your actions, comes from that place, a place of service with a mission focus. But they're your Marines. You're there to make them more capable, more committed to accomplishing the mission. And the moment it becomes about you and your career and your, how do you like me now, your popularity, all of those things, you've lost it. You lost the plot line. And I tell you what, the Marine Corps is if you cannot be a selfish leader in that environment, because it's not authentic. You can't lead from that place. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad that you cleared that up on the definition of a servant leader, because as soon as I got out, we had to get LinkedIn, right? We had to get introduced to the social media world, and servant leader just seemed like this buzzword that everybody put in their profile. And I'm like, I don't even know if you know what that means. They just put it in there because it's like putting in like a college degree, it's like you got to have that. And it's funny. I think I told you this story the other day, but he said leaders eat last is a common phrase. It's a common phrase in my house. I explained that to my kids one day, and now every time my oldest tries to jump in front of my 5-year-old, she just yells, "Leaders eat last," on anything. Not even if they're eating. Just if he tries to do anything, "Leaders eat last," because I told him he was the leader of the kids, and so.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a good little phrase to hear.
I'm so glad we're talking about these fundamental things, because I think in our society and where we're at in life, we have an opportunity to make these fundamentals clear and bring them to life again. Mm-hmm. And one of the another phrase that was always around was take care of your Marines first. Then you take care of your stuff. Make sure that they've got their gear squared away. They understand the mission. They've had the proper training. They've got the right people on the mission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then take care of your stuff, but not you first.
Yeah.
The minute it becomes you first. And this is in fact, Simon Sinek really talks about this in some of his presentations, that sort of in the business world, they've got it backwards. It's this, kind of taking care of yourself. You got the multi-million dollar, payoffs and the stock options and all of that stuff. And then you've got all these people that are actually doing the work. But relationships-based, mission-focused servant leadership is the fundamental heart of the matter. And another thing that I learned along the way is this sense that you've got to have a genuine sense of care. You can call it love, not romantic love. A genuine sense of care and love, regard, respect for the people that you serve. There's always that phrase, well, what if they're not lovable? Yeah. Love is a verb. Lead is a verb. Doesn't mean you can't have high standards, demand accountability. In fact, you have to do those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. You have to lead by example. You've got to do all of those things, but you have got to get to know these people. And we were talking earlier about how different things move different people. So coming to know them and figuring out, how do I serve Brian? How do I serve Paul? So that we, the team, can accomplish our shared mission. That is what's my best and highest role, to serve this person and this team in the direction of the mission. That is the servant leader's question, the central question. And whenever I'm talking to anyone, well, what about this scenario? Or what about this? Or what if that happened? Go right back to, first of all, your perspective. You're at the bottom of a kind of a V sort of a shape, looking up at your teammates in the direction of your shared mission. And your question is, what's my best and highest role? What do they need from me now, short term? What do they need from me long term? Maybe they need a little less of me. They're good to go. Then get out of their way. That's your best and highest role. Maybe they need some supervision, some reasonable management to get them there. Maybe they need more training, but more equipment, staffing, budget, whatever it is, clarity on mission. Whatever those things are, that's where your head is as a leader. And so the interesting thing, I found that in the Marine Corps, it worked. So I was at 2nd Recon Battalion at Camp Lejeune, 3 years there, got picked up for the law program, became a JAG in the Marine Corps through that, and then East Coast, West Coast, did a WestPAC as the SJA, the lawyer for a 3-ship task force.
And SJA is?
Staff Judge Advocate.
Okay.
Yeah, so every Marine Expeditionary Unit, 2,000 Marines and sailors with attachments, 3 ships floating around the ocean. We were in the Western Pacific, and it was, my role was to provide operational law advice and guidance to the commander of the MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. And but whatever the environment is, in the Marine Corps, that worked. That is how you lead as a servant, take care of your Marines, mission focus. Any questions? I didn't think so. That is it. Requires humility, requires you to give a damn about these Marines, requires you to certainly be knowledgeable and all of those kinds of things, but that's it. So then the interesting thing, when I left active duty in 1996.
I was just going to ask, how did that translate over to corporate law?
Exactly, or just life.
Or life in general, yeah.
So that was the big question in my head. So leave the Marine Corps, peace had broken out all over the world, and so I thought, no, it's time. Was headed to the Pentagon, had orders to go to Navy JAG at the Pentagon, and I just thought, it's time for me to get off the ride. You know, this is 1996, so well in advance of 9/11.
That's a good time.
Yeah. But then the question is, well, who am I now? Had a law degree, had some legal experience, so got a job as a lawyer, came back to Indiana. But my concept of myself, being a lawyer, not needing to be in charge of anything, but it was just being a leader was every bit as much of sort of my personal perspective on who I was in the world. I always felt that I had responsibilities to lead, even if I didn't have a title.
Yeah.
It's a big difference there.
It's a whole part of that in your book.
Yeah,
that kind of
exactly.
calling and that responsibility to step up when there's a vacuum or there's a lack of it.
That's right. Sense of responsibility. Always be a good teammate, and was focused on that. But I remember when I entered the civilian world, it was a question of what does it mean to lead out here? Maybe servant leadership is a Marine thing. In fact, when I started looking around, I observed that there wasn't a whole lot of that, at least in the world. Joined a firm where the big phrase was, eat what you kill. You know, so if you land a client, then you know, even if somebody else does the work, you're going to get, you know, you're going to get.
Seems aggressive for a law firm. It's like, calm down.
But I was so used to being around people who could do work, who even lawyers, JAGs in the Marine Corps, they could do the legal stuff, but they also led.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked about it in the book, my first jury trial as a Marine JAG, which was just a complete failure. Hate to admit this, but I do. It's an instructive moment.
That's right.
It was a 3-day jury trial, some minor crime I was prosecuting, and we had a jury, a panel of Marine officers, and you know, at the end of this 3-day, I'm stumbling through, got a wily defense counsel on the other side, and he's just raking me over the coals. It's like, you know, objection, Your Honor, lacks foundation, and I'm thinking, yeah, he's right. I didn't establish a foundation for that document. Anyway, failed miserably, lost the case, couldn't get out of the courtroom fast enough. And little did I know that sitting behind me was a senior officer, one of the senior JAGs in that office. This was at Camp Pendleton. He had been there the whole time. He knew this was my first jury trial, wanted to see how I handled it, and it was not a good show. And he walked up to me afterwards, and he said, "So how do you think that went?" And I said, "Not well, sir." And he said, "I agree." He said, "Does it sting?" And I said, "Yes, sir, it hurts." And he said, "Good." He said, "I tell you what, I'm going to give you a couple of days, and on Friday, I want you to come around to my office. Let's sit down, break this case out. Let's learn from this experience." He said, "You're pretty good on your feet, but you've got some things to learn." "Yes, sir." And then he looked at me and he said, "Welcome to the courtroom." But the whole point of that is it wasn't, "Oh, you failed, you're never going to try a case again. I'm pulling you from, you know, from this aspect of, or I'm declaring you a failure. I'm giving up on you. It was, he saw himself, he saw the leadership responsibility, felt the responsibility and the opportunity with me. And so he led me through a learning process from that case. You know, I later soon thereafter became competent, developed competence, and then became a mentor to other trial lawyers. And it's that sort of, I mean, he was a lawyer, but he was also a leader, and he saw his responsibility. That doesn't always exist out in the world, and I saw that on the civilian side, where I ran into senior lawyers who were just, it was a business, it was a profession, I guess, but they saw no responsibility to help develop their team and to help, do all of the things that we associate with leadership to drive towards mission accomplishment. It was just about them and their practice and making dollars and oh goodness, what a disappointment.
Oh,
but,
yeah. No, I
that was the reality.
I have, it's always funny, like when you have like a preconception of what an organization or a group or whatever is going to be like, right?
Yes.
And there's some government agencies that I've always just been like, oh man, this is going to be so cool. And then you meet them and you're like, no. That's like very underwhelming, and you're, or you think that, I'm going to go to this big law firm and there's going to be all this leadership because you're so used to one way, and you get there and it's just like, oh man. Yeah.
There's another story I tell of this firm I joined, and it was this, one of the named partners sitting down in the corner office, just looked perfect. Everything about him, just dressed immaculately, had the silver hair. He just, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to learn so much from him about what it means to be a lawyer on the civilian side. And I was so looking forward to that whole process, like we had in the military and probably exists in your experience. There was
no shortage of leaders or people you could look up to and you could ask or you could emulate or follow.
Absolutely. Or they'd grab you.
Or they would find you and they would see something in you and say, come on, let me show you how this is done. Again. No shortage of that. And I loved it. Yeah. And then you kind of, you get out here and it's like, I'm thankful I ran into Sean very soon when I got out. Right. But, it's, I could see that being a struggle.
Yeah, and part of it is, how do you define yourself? And I think this is one of the core things. You don't need a title to be a leader. That doesn't make you a leader. It comes from this perspective that you have to serve. And so naturally, it's just a natural kind of our best calling is where we're finding the people that we can teach and that we can share knowledge with and that we can encourage sometimes and sometimes challenge. And the interesting thing, this whole concept of leading as a servant with a mission focus isn't just a work thing. It's not just a military thing. It is all the things. It is in the way we father our children. It can be in the way we are, a colleague or a teammate, if you will, with our spouse. It can encompass all aspects of your life, your role in church or your role in the community. And when you, with humility, when you adopt this and really start seeing the world through those eyes, it affects all of the relationships you have. You run into somebody I went through and got my coffee at the local gas station on my way this morning, and I could tell the person behind the counter was kind of having a rough day, and I just engaged her in some just conversation. How are you doing? What's going on? And what's it like to work here? What do you like about it? What do you not like? That kind of just these moments in which maybe I could change the trajectory of someone's day, or at least just not be a negative.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective on that. I could definitely see you doing that, just knowing you long enough. I was telling Brian earlier, I said, take Sean everywhere because he'll just talk to anybody.
I think a piece on that you speak on too is it not only lifts them up for the day. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, it makes you feel good inside, right?
No question.
Because you're serving someone. Just as simple, we talk about just a simple good morning. And I try to tell my kids that is like, you never know what somebody's going through, right? You don't know that's their darkest day or whatever. And a simple good morning or, hey, I like your shirt, just something, right? To try to lift somebody up. Yeah. Not only helps them, but internally it can do a lot for you.
Just be human.
Right.
And there's so much inhumanity in the world that kind of replacing that as you every touch, and sometimes it's a neutral touch. You're not like trying to make everybody's day walking around being silly or goofy.
You don't be obnoxious.
But with authenticity, just be a human being. And once I entered the business world, it was the same question was, well, what runs, a publicly traded company? And once again, go back, you're starting over. I'm a second lieutenant for the third time, starting over again. What moves this place? What moves the needle? How do they talk to one another? What matters out here? What does success look like? What stories do they sort of honor? And all the cultural things. What are the values? All of the. So it was once again you're kind of starting over and learning and trying to gather some knowledge together about all of that. And then comes the question: how do you lead in this environment? And in that case, I had been given a title. I was general counsel and I was senior vice president of human resources. Great. Got a title, whatever.
Got it.
But all comes down to small unit leadership. My team, how do they function? So I just...
Nobody does small unit leadership better than the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I agree with you. And and the interesting thing is that it works. So what I learned from my 22 years in corporate America and my 3 years in civilian law, and then my 13 years in the Marine Corps, and then 4 years at Annapolis, is that it really does come back down to serving your people with a mission focus and giving a damn about them. About their progress, about their performance, about their preparation, about their success. They, so that we can get amazing things done. And it happened again at the company I was at. And I guess I'm not surprised, but that was, I didn't know. Is this real out here? And it just is, because it's the way we are wired. I think we are social animals, if you will, social creatures. So there's a social aspect to human beings. And we have this ability through language and through empathy and to gather around and take part in a team sort of an effort with this combined effort that can accomplish something, sort of the evolution, why we kind of ended up, I guess, at the top of the food chain. We have that ability. And that's why these are such fundamental things like leadership. You don't need an MBA. You don't need a college degree. You certainly don't need a law degree. You don't need to be a graduate of a military academy. You don't need to be a military veteran. But all of these things fit into this because these are all organizations that work together to accomplish something. And what I learned in the business world is that it is the same thing, but you may have to sort of, if the culture is overmanaged and underled, you're going to have problems.
Oh yeah. No, I was really curious about for the sake of, say someone doesn't decide, well, let's back up. So we keep referencing On Mission, a book written by Sean and his, I guess, colleague would be the word for it.
Yeah.
Friend.
Best buddies since third
John
grade.
Buford, right? I just actually finished it a couple weeks ago. He keeps there's a lot of anecdotal stories from their lives, which are hilarious and really good and, and informational, but they really put a real world touch to what they're saying. But I know, I'm trying to imagine someone listening out there, and we talk about all these different leadership organizations. And for someone who hasn't done any of that or been involved in any of that, and I know you touch on this in the book, but if you could maybe explain, is this something people are born with, or is it something you can learn, question. Or, it's like, I've just not cut out for me. And so please just fill us in on that.
Yeah, that's sort of one of those, forever questions. Are there born leaders? There has never been a born leader. And I've met some of my classmates at the Naval Academy who had everything in the world going for them. I mean, just, physical prowess and they were incredibly intelligent and had all of these things that we usually often associate with charismatic leaders.
Sure.
So it's like, oh, that person's a born leader. Really? Where are they going? Is anyone following them?
Yeah.
Often the ego gets in the way of your ability to lead in an authentic way. And
we talk about ego a lot on this show.
Yeah.
So,
there's a healthy level of it, just like ambition, a healthy level of, Abraham Lincoln was ambitious.
Confident.
But when that dominates the engagement with the world or the way you, then you end up and you're just an empty, pretty vessel. You're really, but so there are no born leaders. Leadership is about your perspective. It's about your humanity, and it's about ultimately behavior. One of your favorite topics. Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Because leadership is who you are, all aspects of you, and what you do that has the effect, the impact of moving another person in the direction of your shared mission. So kind of like what we used to say in the Marines, be, know, do. So you've got to focus, if you want to lead, on, you've got to certainly know yourself, and you may have to kind of align some
know
things
yourself,
there.
Seek self-improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
And have a reasonable set of values, be trustworthy, those kinds of things. But ultimately, how do you behave? How do you conduct yourself in a relationship with another human being? If you want respect and you want trust, be the initiator. Respect first, trust first. Again, unless given reasons not to respect or trust, and somebody can prove you wrong. But I've always loved that idea of you be the first mover in the relationship.
I actually like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I'm all about, there are some bad folks out there and no question, but you know what? I'm probably going to give you a shot first off.
Yeah.
And man, if we can run with this, let's roll.
Until you give me a reason not to.
Yeah, exactly. Then
I think it also, like, in a lot of, I know when I was younger, right? You think of a leader, you try to think of the highest or the most, and leadership just looks different for every person out there, whether
Absolutely.
It's, like my wife stays at home with the children and raises my children and takes care of everything else. There is some leadership going on there, right? And it's, you don't have to be the president of a company to be a leader.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks different in everybody's life.
One of the things I mentioned also in the book, I hate to keep referring to it, but when I was in my Actually, it was Plebe Summer, your first summer at the Naval Academy, which is, you're 18 years old. It's, it's like an extended, or sort of like a boot camp kind of an experience. And you got all these people running around just screaming and yelling at you and calling you names, and you're just running here and there. And I had never experienced anything like that. And I remember we would get the opportunity, I think, to call home like once a week on the weekend. You get 15 minutes, at the phone booth, and go, time's up. And I called home, and I'm talking to my mom, and trying to be all stoic and grown up, and I was neither. And she sat down and wrote me a letter. And I remember getting that letter, and it was just filled with, it helped me to get a perspective on what they were doing to us, what this whole experience was about. And she said, you know what? If you want to quit, you can quit. And if you want to come home and run around with your buddies and do all of that, yeah, you could do that. Or you could stay. And you could learn from this experience, and you could mature through this experience. They are putting pressure on you that is really artificial, but the only way we create men and women that are mature is by putting them under pressure in an environment in which they can learn from those experiences and align with some principles. And so the letter wasn't, I'm going to coddle you and I'll be there tomorrow morning parked outside of gate 3, and you pack your stuff up and I'll bring you home, honey, and fix you a nice meal when you get home. She didn't say that. Nor did she say the opposite of that, which is that you're going to stay and you work too hard to get there. It wasn't. It was, you can choose, but be aware of what the ramifications of your choices are going to be. So she wrote this 1-page letter that helped to put this whole thing in perspective for me. I never looked back. The reason why I mention that is when we think about leadership, again, we usually think of it in terms of, business and stuff like that. Or follow me, let's take the hill. Often it's in our personal relationships, mother to son or husband to wife. And in this case, that was an act of leadership. She knew me, which was a part of it, right? Probably knew me better than, I knew myself. And she offered some historical examples in that letter that gave me some perspective. And then she offered this, it was all about perspective on it, because I had no perspective. I couldn't see past my nose. Like 15 minutes. I've only got 10 minutes now. I've got we've got a formation in 20 minutes, and I've got to get my uniform ready, and I've got to memorize the menu for evening meal, and just panic, right? Kind of a scenario. It gave me perspective, but it was an act of leadership, a simple act of leadership. And that's why sometimes just stopping for a minute and saying, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? I sense that there's some pressure right now, or there's, you and I have had conversations over the past several months that were, okay, talk to me. Where are you at in your head? Kind of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I thank you every time for it, because I said, look, I know me, and I wouldn't want to deal with me, so... Thank you for that,
And maybe I can do something about it, or maybe I can't. But what I can do is just be there in the moment. The best leaders I've met across my now 65 years in all of the environments, military, law, business world, now back in the law and back practicing law, they have been men and women who are able to get out of their own head and do a check-in in the moment. Just kind of stop the world from rolling around and bring you back to right here and right now. What's going on right now? Where's your head right now? Where's your heart right now? What can I do so that they can figure out what they can do to serve? Maybe there's nothing, but you know what? Listening, being there for somebody, that's powerful stuff, man. Being there right now, I've got a leadership challenge on my plate, which isn't, just it's right along the same thing that we're talking about. My stepson lost his father. They were very close. I played, tried to figure out what's my best and highest role when my son's father was here. And now I've got to redefine. I'm always asking that question. What's my best and highest role to serve my stepson in light of his father's untimely death? And does it need to adjust? And I'm finding that kind of a place. But you're always asking that. You don't just look at somebody and say, okay, I know what my best and highest role is with this person. And so, no, it's a constant kind of a, how can I serve? How can I serve?
That's a great point, because it's not just in a professional setting, right? This is personal.
This is life.
Every part of your life, right? You need to have that kind of mentality.
Right. Yeah.
Sean, I'm curious. I would like to pick your brain. I know, excuse me, prior to the show starting, we kind of talked about knowing your people, right? Is a big part of that leadership. And I think from my experience over the last few years of trying to become a better leader, I didn't have rank, in my prior life, but was in a leadership role at some times when things were a little stressful. But I never really understood of knowing your team as far as, okay, how does Paul, what fills him?
Right.
What is he good at? What makes him want to be here, right? Instead of, hey, Paul, you're going to work on this spreadsheet all day. It's not his thing, right? So understanding your people and their strong suits and putting them in those positions to excel and making them happy and then making the whole team stronger.
Yes.
I think it took me a little bit to understand what that means, but I think it goes back to understanding your team and helping them grow where they're happy as well. It's not just the whole overall mission, but how can I plug this guy in to make the whole thing successful and he's happy? It's not just a paycheck.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. No, I think you've nailed it. And, whenever you use the H word, happy, it's like, well, we've got tough jobs to do sometimes. Not everybody's going to be happy. Absolutely. This isn't about walking around being Mr. Happy and patting people on the back. And, every Friday we're going to celebrate and appreciate each other and have cupcakes and balloons. But you can be there in the trenches with somebody who's got a tough job. You can share in the burden, maybe pick up or grab a handle, right? Or grab a, I remember having a conversation with my friend and co-author, and we were talking about how, and no criticism to people who work on a road crew, but it's sort of a metaphor. Sometimes you'll drive by and you've got a whole bunch of people standing around and two guys out there just working their tail off with, right. And it's, boy, there's an awful lot of management happening out there. Why doesn't everybody, a lot of supervisors, it's what is my best and highest role is maybe, hey, maybe you do need to keep leaders also have to keep an eye on, are we advancing towards our, objective? Are we accomplishing the mission? So you may have to step back and keep a perspective, but there are times when you need to reach out and grab a shovel and start digging or help your teammate in doing that. But yeah, you nailed it. I think there are, one of the things about leadership, there are principles. There are a few just key principles, and we've talked about some of those, serving in leadership, setting and being the example, actually the living, breathing example. One of the things I like to say is that it was true in the Marine Corps. If you want to know how to wear the uniform, I could hand you the, Marine Corps manual on, or you can just look at my uniform. Just look. This is the example. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
We're always...
Or you'll get corrected real quick.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of accountability.
But it's funny on that real quick because Brian and I, we had lunch with a city official, a high-ranking person, and they were talking about how they've been working through some mental health, and they had hired some mental health office with a therapist there on standby for their staff, and I think my first question was, okay, just you and the top 10 in the whole organization, how many of you have gone to that person? I said, well, maybe one.
Wow.
And I said, well, yeah, nobody's going to want to go if the top 10 people aren't going.
Right.
Because everybody's worried about stuff affecting their career or, the stigma. And that's how you can dispel all that right there is go in there and show people that it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's creating that environment, that culture. One of the things I think that we need more of out here in the world is those who want to try to grow and develop as a leader is go out and find somebody that moves you and inspires you and that you're drawn to by their example, and ask them if they will serve as a mentor. Wow. I've been asked many times. I've never said no. And it always took a different kind of a course. Some people need more time and energy, others a little less, but just being available but seeking that out. And once, whether you're starting a new job or you're in an industry or a field, retail, gosh, is there anybody out there who's knocking it out of the park? Who can I learn from? Who seems to be wearing this burden fairly easy? I want to go spend time with that person. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm going to develop a relationship. We all sort of stay in our lanes, and we need to move beyond that. And I think men especially, we tend to be, we kind of, I've got this, I'll figure it out.
It's that ego thing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I don't need no help.
Probably some of that.
I got to figure it out.
But I mean, you've had coffee with some people who are.
Oh, I was just thinking there's no way I would even be able to do the job that I do.
Yeah.
Nearly as well as I'm doing it.
Which was a whole new world.
A whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
new learning experience.
It was. A lot of thanks to Sean introducing me to this world. No. But if I didn't have some of these people that I talk to regularly that have been in the game for years in different parts of it, right? I'd be lost right now.
Yeah.
I owe everything to them.
Yeah. Getting back to just to kind of circle back on your question, the knowing your people, and then, this isn't a McDonald's drive-through, right? Leadership isn't, well, how do you want it on your plate, honey, all the time? Sometimes there is sort of a one-size, listen, this is important, right? The communication of it, you need to get this done. Now, how you do it, I may give you some flexibility there, but here's your deadline. This is what the standard looks like. What do you need from me in order to get, well, Dad, I just need you to get out of my way, or I got this, or whatever, or show me. But that moment, facing into that moment, rather than sort of yelling and screaming necessarily, some people, my older brother would only respond if you kind of kicked him in the rear. But, there are always those exceptions to all the rules, but find out what they need. And if you come to know them, you kind of know how to put it on their plate. And there's nothing wrong or weak about some encouragement. And feedback is a gift. Timely, constructive, can be hard, can be, guess what? That was just like my first jury trial. Failed. Judge said it out loud in front of God and country. The jury was there. You know, this Marine was acquitted, found not guilty. I had to go report to the commanding officer and say, sir, I failed to convict this Marine. So, I mean, there are there's failure and success, but helping them to learn through and just facing into, engaging as a human being. There are so many teaching opportunities for us in our lives. And I think the more you sort of embrace your responsibility to lead as a servant with a mission focus, you start seeing them all the time. Oh, Paul's stuck on this issue, or he's having a hard time with this or that. I'm going to engage. I'm not going to talk about, hey, the weather just really, no, Paul, let's sit down and talk about this thing that it seems to me that, right? Just go ahead and drill in.
It seems like a revolving theme tonight about just like noticing people or like talking to them, having a conversation or communicating and checking in with people. I mean, you guys were talking about saying hi to strangers and, how you can change people's lives. And I kept thinking it's gnawing at me. So I want to tell this story. Sure. I had read this before, but there was this man, and he lived in San Francisco, and he was depressed, and he had planned he was going out to the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was going to end his life. Right. He ends up going through with it. And when they go to his house, there's a letter there, and it said, I plan on doing this, but if just one person stops and smiles at me or says hello or asks me anything, I won't do it.
Wow.
Think about that, right? Like, absolutely. Man, that's powerful.
Absolutely.
I think about that all the time when I see somebody like you were saying, somebody having a bad day, just like give them a head nod or a wave or a, hey, how you doing?
And so here's what I have observed when you think about leadership failures. Leadership failures are most often not evil people who are sort of conniving, and leadership failures are often the fail to act, the fail to behave, the failure to engage as a leader. Mm-hmm. Or not even seeing the opportunities, right? So there's a level of awareness, and that's why I don't miss. I'm sure I miss many. I don't want to say that, but I'm aware of them. Your kind of antenna is up. Is there an opportunity to follow? Is there an opportunity to be a good teammate, or is there an opportunity to lead? Regardless of title and position, it's not about that. We all know, right? It's not about rank or title. Man, some of the best leadership moments, I've observed were from, very junior individuals who had a key answer to what seemed to be an impossible situation, or they asked a question that nobody thought of, or they set an example or took an initiative that moved everybody. It's like, wow, who made that person a leader? They decided to lead. Lead is a verb. One of my favorite stories comes from. So I'm in North Carolina with my buddy, where he lives out in Western North Carolina. We both ride bikes, and he said, "Hey, bring your bike out." Brought my bike out, and I don't like bringing my bike out there because
bicycle, Brian, not motorcycle.
Okay. Sorry about that. So
we had to clarify that one real quick. You're like, hell yeah! All right.
Because we're in Indiana and it's flat, and that's where I usually ride. He's in Western North Carolina, and so we decided, and there are mountains, just to be clear. So we went out on a ride, and I said, all right, John, and he's in tremendous shape. And I said, all right, John, what are you going to do to me today? And he said, yeah, we'll just go out. We're going to do this ride that we ride pretty often. It's, oh, well, how far is it, John? And he said, no, it's a 100-kilometer ride. And I'm doing the math in my head, so like 60-some miles.
We live in America, brother.
Yeah.
Why are we doing kilometers right now?
60-some miles. And I'm thinking, oh, gosh, that's a long way. And then I said, so where does the ride go? Well, we're going to start right here. And it's, the first half of it's all kind of downwards. And then then we'll come back up, we'll go over the mountain, and then we'll just end up coming back downhill and into the local town he lives in. I said, so there's going to be a mountain involved. And he said, yeah, you'll be fine. So we jump on the bikes. First half of the ride, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. He and I am keeping up with him, and we're riding along. Beautiful, beautiful area. We start off in North Carolina. Somehow we ended up in South Carolina. Now we're doubling back, and we have yet to go over the mountain. And I knew we were going to. So we come up, and it's up and to my left as we're riding, and we come up to this T in the road, and there's a sign at this intersection, and the sign says, over the next 6 miles, you will climb, 3,000 feet to the highest point on the Eastern Continental Divide. I kid you not. And then it says, and I'm pretty sure there was a skull and crossbones on the sign, but maybe not. But anyway, it said, this is for elite riders only. So we're sitting there on our bikes. We're stopped. I'm reading the sign. I'm sure my jaw had dropped open. And John looks over at me, and then he looks at the sign, and he looks back at me. And we had been trading the leading, and following during the course of the journey all the way along. He looked at the sign, looked at me, and he said 6 words. He said, 6 miles, granny gear, follow me. I get goosebumps thinking about it. It was such like a John Wayne moment. 6 miles, granny gear, follow me. And I did, and we did. And we got up over the mountain, and we cruised back in. And I thought that was one of those leadership moments where, because when you think about it, so John retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. I left as a major. He would have, I guess, outranked me, but I was a little bit older than him. We grew up together, and and maybe I had better grades than John. So am I high? I mean, who's the leader? That's such nonsense. What is needed in the moment? I tell you what, if it would have been up to me, I would have said, John, this has been a great ride. I'll see you back home. I'm going back down the hill. I'm not going over the ridge. I wouldn't have been able to make it if he had not been in front of me as we rode. I just would not. I know I wouldn't have been. I hate to admit that. Gosh, I'd rather be like, I could have done it by myself. Nonsense. Wouldn't have happened. What a cool moment. Again, being aware and observing, and then stepping into, all right, Sean's commitment is flagging right now. He doesn't think he can do this. He needs me to lead. I'm physically going to lead him up over the next portion of this ride, give him some clear instructions, and here we go. It was just one of those moments. And I think that is the leadership opportunity in our lives, is to just be aware, you with your kids, both of you, what do they need right now? Maybe they don't need me to lead. Maybe say, hey, Sean, let me see you go, man. I'll follow you. Or maybe they don't need so much of you in that moment. Maybe they do. Maybe they need some encouragement. Maybe they need you to say, hey, let me show you how I usually do this. Or here's how my dad taught me, or whatever it is. What is your best and highest role so that we, both of us, can get over the mountain is that core question that if that's always running through your head, you're pretty much going to get the right answer. If you don't know, you can ask, what do you need from me right now? Well, gosh, I could use a little more instruction. I could give me an example or show me, however people learn, or will you walk with me while we do this? Wow. You need me to be there with you, or maybe, hey, I got it. I got it, Dad. I got it, boss, whatever. I'm looking forward to showing you my work product or, this project when it's done. Outstanding. I'll be over here if you need me. We make it so hard, but it's such a human, elemental kind of a thing, leading. So that's what I've learned after 65 years.
Yeah, no, I love it, Sean.
So I just got one more piece that I think it's important that I've learned, that it was, we've talked, I think, in prior episodes about emotion, right? Yeah. In the tactical world, you don't make decisions based off emotion. It will get you killed, right? And for me to bring that into the business side of things, it was an adjustment, and I've recently had a chat with some of my team about you react on emotion right now, and as a leader, you can't do that. You got to step back, look at it at 30,000 feet. And sometimes maybe today is not the right time to have the decision because the discussion because we're in our emotions. Maybe it sets better tonight. We talk tomorrow. Right. So what are your feelings on that as a leader of making sure that we're not making decisions or having those conversations when we're in those emotional periods?
That's great. Great question. So again, always every scenario type question, I always go back to the servant leader's question. What's my best and highest role? Which requires some self-awareness, which some people lack. So that's something to work on if you lack it. Some people, they aren't even aware that they just go right into a rage or whatever. They just outbreak. So that's a part of, I think, the maturing process or developing that. So it may need to be managed to a degree. Having said that, there are those times where some emotion is exactly what's called for. Sometimes, I remember my dad, man, he would grit his teeth when you cross that line, and that's all I needed to
right, yeah,
see.
No, I agree.
Or raise his voice, and I knew, this is important. I'm not quite sure why, but okay, so I'm going to move. Now, having said that, if that's all you've got, if you're just a hair trigger and you have no control over your emotions, then you're missing something. I think there's that, again, best and highest role. Okay, I need to be aware, because I tell you what, emotions are powerful.
Yeah,
they send a signal. People can read them. They know but also if there is a moment where some emotion may be called for, again, reasonable, not putting people in danger, but there might be a time when a little bit of emotion it is not inhumane, right?
Just
and I'm not saying be a machine about it, but sometimes we do have to back off a little bit, and maybe that isn't healthy. I loved your, that point about, hey, we don't need to decide right now. We've raised this is something. Why don't we go walk around the yard, or why don't we sleep on this? Let's come back at this tomorrow. I mean, if you can call out your own emotions, that's super cool, right? It's so authentic. Hey, I'm getting a little hot about this right now. Probably not. You're also teaching. This probably isn't the best time for me to make this decision. Let's revisit this tomorrow, or give me a moment to think about this. But yeah, I think that's a part of, again, if I'm going to lead, asking myself what's my best and highest role, I've got to be able to not manipulate my emotions, but just manage them. Some people talk about leading yourself. I think it's more about managing yourself and then leading others. But great point. Just something to work on. And I don't know if Paul, have you found yourself? Are you better at that?
All the time.
Are you better at that though, maybe than you once were? Or?
Yes, I would say I'm better. I still got a lot of work to do.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'll ask you. I mean, in the 2 years that we've known each other, I think I've gotten a little better.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Emotions get high.
Sure.
And when you're passionate about things, so you just gotta.
And that's the hard part. When you're passionate, you don't understand why somebody else is not passionate.
Right.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part.
Like, what do you mean? You don't think like I do about this,
right?
And that's what my wife's really good at reminding me. She's like, Brian, not everybody hears it the way you hear it. Like the way you just told me. Your employee doesn't understand that. They don't understand what's going on in your crazy brain, right? So taking a minute and be like, okay.
And also part of it is, it's sort of, I remember we used to have these conversations about why isn't everyone, executives at the company I was at, why isn't everyone motivated as highly as, well, let me count the ways, sir. Let's see. They are compensated on an hourly basis. They have no stock options. You have a 6-figure salary with stock options, a lot, maybe more response, et cetera. But you can't put there are lots of reasons why they're not as committed. This is a job for them. For you, it's whatever. It's your life. It's your calling. It's your, part of it is putting yourself in the shoes of a little bit, right? Empathy, meaning not sympathy, but empathy. What is that person going through? What is their perspective? One of my favorite questions as a leader is, hey, help me to understand how you're looking at this right now.
I like that.
It's a great quote. Well, I just don't understand why this is such a priority. All right, awesome. You're probably right. I probably didn't express that. Here's why this matters. I
really like that.
And that kind of creating the, my dad would say, well, you've got to use this tool this way, and that's the only option. I wanted to get a little creative. Dad, help me to understand why maybe why is that the only way? Because that's what the tool was designed for. And so I would, while Dad was around, I would use it as instructed. And then when he went away, I might try some different ways.
Utilize it another way.
Yeah. Get creative. So in any event, good question. Again, authenticity. We can be human and lead. We aren't machines. We don't have to, and there's not sort of a, school book solution for everything. But if you know this about yourself, that I tend, and especially if you've got hot buttons, find a way either to work through that a little, because emotions are powerful. And again, if I'm trying to serve this person, they might not need to feel the heat. Again, I'm trying to serve this person so that we can accomplish the mission. If I look in my tool belt of leadership tools and I just keep bringing out the hammer and I'm just like swinging when I've got all these other tools, pick the right tool for the moment.
Yeah,
I like it.
Again, with love, which is a powerful thing. If I also bring that into the picture, I'm going to serve, and I'm going to care means I'm taking their interest. I don't have to be all warm and fluffy and fuzzy and right. But there may be time. This may be one of those hard moments we need to work through. But so emotion is not bad, but you may need to manage it to keep it constructive.
No, that's a good point, man.
Sean, it's been great. We appreciate it. This is we have to have you back on. We can keep going and on and on about this. And I think a lot of our guests has been military or law enforcement, and I think this resonates with everyone, right? And it doesn't. Great. You don't have to be a business owner or an attorney or whatever. It's a dad, right? And learning how to lead. So I.
Appreciate it.
You said you'd never said no to a mentorship, so I may. You just opened the door there, sir.
The answer is yes.
No, captivating as always, Sean. I always enjoy these conversations. I learn something every time, so we wanted to get you out here and let everybody else learn from you too.
And listen, I'm so proud of what you guys are doing, all of you. This is awesome. Keep it up. Let's do this thing and let me know how I can serve.
We couldn't do it without that man back there.
Absolutely.
Mr. Thomas Grimm.
He's
the
unsung
pod
hero.
father.
Absolutely.
Thomas,
That's right.
Thank you.
Sean, tell us real quick before we go, how can listeners get your book?
Absolutely. So you can get it in hard copy. Amazon is a perfect place to get it. On Mission, Your Journey to Authentic Leadership. You can also listen to it on Audible. And it's all about you taking responsibility for your learning journey. You can do this. So,
yeah.
All right.
Listeners, check the book out. You'll learn more about Sean and his great leadership, and sure that there's something that we can all take from that book. So again,
that's right.
Thank you, sir. We greatly appreciate you.
Appreciate you both.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Watch and the War.